Around the Ozarks is now on your FM radio. Listen to Around the Ozarks mornings with Grace Gooley as I spotlight local people, stories, and podcasts, all while playing the country legends of the 90s and the hit makers of the 2000s. It's on the Ozarks Best Country, 105.1 The Bull.
Hi, this is Joy Robertson. As many of you know, I love food. I love finding new restaurants. I love trying new dishes. And most of all, I love talking to the many great restaurateurs and entrepreneurs we have here in the Ozarks and beyond. I love hearing their stories, and that's what this podcast is all about, learning more about them and their journey. So join me as we savor the Ozarks. This episode is brought to you by Jim's Steakhouse and Pub and Springfield's locally owned Fazoli's. One of the most popular restaurants in the Ozarks is back open. I'm sitting at Piccolo in Nixa, Missouri with owner Steve D'Arpino. Steve, it's good to have you with me. And you are back open, and we might as well start with a little recent history first. You are back open because the restaurant itself met with a very unfortunate accident within the last year, 6 months-ish.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened here.
So this past June, it was actually June 29th on that Sunday evening. It was right towards the end of the night. It was probably only about 20 minutes till we were closing. And of course, you know, as fate would have it, we were fairly busy at that point. I want to say we had close to 40 guests in the restaurant. And all of a sudden, you just hear this loud boom in the back, and you know, and it was actually we had storms earlier in the evening, so when it first happened, I thought maybe the roof had collapsed from water being up there or something, because I just looked in the kitchen and I could see that the ceiling tiles had been, you know, knocked down, and so at first I didn't even realize that it had been a car that had hit us, but one of my cooks started yelling back to our guys in dish and, you know, saying, "Are you guys okay? Are you okay?" And no one would answer him. And so then we walked around the other side, and that's when we saw the large SUV literally right through where the office was, and it took out the back kitchen wall. And by the grace of God, no one was hurt. The young man that was doing dishes at that point, he had literally just turned maybe a second or two before that to load the dishwasher, and that's the only reason why he wasn't, you know, hurt very badly, if not killed by the sink that landed on top of him. And so again, by the grace of God, if anyone had been in the office or just walking back to the walk-in, they would have immediately been killed.
So, thank goodness, nobody was hurt. No customers, no staff. Of course, it happened back in the office area. Building was badly hurt. And that had to be a huge shock to the system, because not only does this happen, it's at night, it's very disorienting. You have guests, you're worried about everybody's safety. Then they start digging into how bad the building's damaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so once, you know, we made it through that evening, and everyone was okay. And we actually were fortunate enough that we actually have the Nixa PD dines in here quite a bit. And so we actually had an officer that was on site when the accident happened. And so she immediately called for assistance. And so, you know, more cops and, you know, paramedics and everybody was here within just a minute or two, which was great. But then once we had the mechanical engineer come out and, you know, check out the building, and I can't believe it to this day, but he said that what actually stopped the vehicle finally from moving was there was a support beam that was located between our location and next door Lily's Catering, and that beam is what actually finally stopped him. So he went, knocked out all the glass panels on the back outside of the building, 2 walls in the office, and then knocked out the wall separating us and Lily's, and that beam's finally what stopped him.
It's been, like I said, 6 months-ish. It's been a long road, and you opened back up just, a few weeks ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we opened up in middle of December, and I knew that everyone was going to be really excited to come back, and, you know, it was, you know, I know that we probably disappointed a lot of people being Christmas time that we weren't open for the dining, but, you know, at the same time, I felt like being respectful to my staff especially, I wanted to give them time to get their feet back under them and get acclimated to doing everything again. So we just did curbside for the first 2 weeks, and then New Year's Eve was our grand reopening.
Well, congratulations on your reopening, and I know you care so much about your staff and taking care of them in a time that you weren't open, and it was just so much for you to deal with. And I want to get into the menu at Piccolo, but I also want to hear about your background. Steve, your mom and dad were in the restaurant business. Mark and Mary Ann DiArpino. There was a restaurant over on South National, correct?
Mm-hmm.
For many years.
Yeah, back in 2004, I believe, my parents opened up DiArpino's Italian Cafe, and it was kind of crazy how it all came about. The backstory to it is, at the time, I was working at Valentine's Restaurant, which is on South Campbell, where Rebar, which is where Valentine's was located originally. So I was fortunate enough to be working for Joe Sinceri, who was the owner at the time, and he was just one of those people that knew everyone in Springfield as far as all the restaurant owners and everybody. And Nick Russo, who has St. Michael's downtown and had started Ebbets Field and everything, he had a restaurant that he had opened with his wife, and it was just a little kind of sandwich shop kind of thing, and they decided they wanted to get out of that and just focus on St. Michael's. And so he was looking for someone to just come in and take it, and apparently he didn't have very many potential suitors, and so he had contacted Joe and asked him, and Joe said, well, no, I don't really want to do it. He said, but I think I might know someone who's interested. And so Joe connected Nick and my parents, and within a month they owned their own restaurant, and that's kind of how that started. My dad had been in the restaurant industry his entire life, and he grew up in New York, and so that's when people ask me to describe what kind of Italian food we serve, I always say it's East Coast Italian, because that's my dad's background. So when he was 15, he started in a pizza shop and was hooked, and that's what he wanted to do for the rest of his life. So.
Okay, so when they opened their own restaurant, DiArpino's, it was not foreign territory to them at all?
No.
Okay.
No, it was the first time my mom had worked in the restaurant business, but she had obviously had experience doing other things, and so it was kind of crazy. We put the menu together, and myself and my sister, we each had a little bit of input and put together a couple of menu items, and next thing you know, they were open, and they were in business for 14 years, and they had a really good run.
To what degree were you involved with DiArpino's at that time?
In the opening up process, I was really involved in menu development. For people that remember DiArpino's, there was a menu item called Chicken DiArpino, and I had actually come up with that. It was a spin-off of an item that I saw Emeril Lagasse make on TV one night, and it was just a stuffed chicken breast, and I was like, I wonder what it would taste like if we put bacon and prosciutto in there, and so that's how that came about. But that and the pepperoni knots, or the pepperoni roll appetizer, that was really popular there, and that was another item that I had come up with. And the first 6 months they were open, I was still in college, and so the way my schedule worked out is I had a class from like 8 to 9:30. I would get out of class, go work lunch on the line, and then go back to class at 2:30 every day. And so that was a little, and then working nights at Valentine's, so it was a little bit of a stressful time, but it was fun though. So,
were you born and raised here?
No, I was actually born in right outside Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
And we lived there until I was about 10, and then we actually moved to Michigan for just a couple years. That's where my mom's side of the family was from, and then she had a sister that lived in Missouri, and that's how we wound up here. And so we moved here right before I started junior high, and then I went to high school and college here and never left.
Well, you mentioned your dad's connection being a New Yorker and all of that, and I wondered if maybe you had been born there, or if your family wound up here prior to you being born. Have you always had an interest in hospitality, in the food industry?
Yeah, my first job, I worked for my dad at a pizza place in Springfield. It was called Brûlée, for people who remember that. It was at Lone Pine and Battlefield, and anyways, I was started out as a dishwasher, and then started cooking, and then I would take deliveries, and so for an 18-year-old kid at that point, that was it was a fun job delivering pizzas, but that was. At that point, then when I finally turned 21, I got my first serving job, and that was probably the point where then I, started to have those daydreams like, I'd like to have my own place someday, and, then years later, here we are.
So fast forward to Piccolo. How did the idea come about? What were you thinking?
So actually, it kind of spun a little bit from what we originally intended it to be. My wife and I had an idea for a concept. We had moved out to Nixa a few years before that, and one of our favorite things to do would be go out to dinner, and we were always just felt like there was a lack of options in Nixa for just casual dining, and so my wife was really great at doing research and everything, and so she had it down to the demographics of the city of Nixa, disposable income, those kind of things, and she was like, I really think it would work. I really think so. And so that's kind of where the idea started. And then I was actually, right before this, I was managing Ruby Tuesdays here in Nixa, and then as fate would have it, it's almost like it was meant to be. They closed us down, and I think it was literally like 2 days before we got shut down. I had come to this plaza to pick up sushi at a restaurant that was next door, and honest to God, I'd never noticed this location before, but I pulled up in front of it, and it had a for lease sign on it, and I'm looking at it, and I thought, it kind of looks like a restaurant, and it had the patio, and I'm looking in the windows, and I can see the side room, and I was like, and I'm looking through all the windows, and I'm thinking, wow, this is a really nice spot, and didn't think much of it other than that, and went home, and I mentioned it to my wife, and she was like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll drive by it sometime, like, not a big deal. And a couple days later we get shut down, and at that point, my wife looked at me, and I said, well, I guess I'll go start doing interviews. And she was like, well, what if we go look at that spot that you found the other day? And that was kind of where it started from. And even looking back on it now, it sounds crazy to people that have restaurant experience, but we signed the lease in September, and we were open December 6th. So that fast, we were able to get the remodel done, branding, menu, all that.
So you have a sushi restaurant to thank for one of the best Italian restaurants in the Ozarks.
Yeah, I believe it was Rice and Roll was the name of the sushi restaurant. Yeah. So, just like I said, it almost seemed like it was meant to be. I found it a couple days before we got shut down, and, then here we are.
Your wife, Cassie, was a huge part of this endeavor, and unfortunately, you lost her a little over a year ago. She had a battle with cancer. I'm so sorry. I know you miss her, but you're still here. You're still getting it done.
Yeah, it's, I mean, to say it's been hard is an understatement. Unfortunately, in her case, she fought it for 6 or 7 years, and the crazy part of it is 6 months before she passed away, she had actually been cleared of, she was cancer free, and then it just came back with a vengeance, and then it spread to her liver, and that was that. So it was obviously, we didn't see it coming. Even when she went to the hospital, I still thought that she was going to come out of it, and but it just wasn't meant to be. So
she was a beautiful and dynamic woman and missed by many people.
When is the perfect occasion to use Fazoli's catering? Studies have shown everyone loves Fazoli's signature pasta dishes, pizza, salads, and those famous breadsticks, which means Fazoli's is the perfect choice for any occasion. Nothing completes the winter season like a pasta party catered by Fazoli's. Every day is a good day for Italian, which means it's always the right time for Fazoli's. Your next catered event is just a click away at Fazoli's.com.
Fazoli's. Some people check the weather. Others check our soup of the day. Hi, this is Jim with Jim's Steakhouse and Pub. Our soup of the day changes, but the comfort never does. Just check with your server, because nothing takes the edge off a cold day like whatever's simmering at Jim's.
When you walk through those legendary doors, you're gonna find there's so much to love. So do yourself a favor, dig that service and flavor. Jim's Steakhouse and Pub.
And the two of you managed to secure this building, like you said, remodel it, get it open in just a couple months. Talk about what you came in with. What menu ideas did you come in with, and then how did it evolve?
So, we had a couple core ideas that we really wanted to implement. One of them was I'd never had it before, but I really wanted to make a cheese stuffed meatball. And, so that was something that I had, tried out at our house before, in that couple months before we opened up. And, my wife was like, oh, these are really good. And she was the one that then suggested, why don't we top it with goat cheese? And I was like, okay, that's nothing that I would have thought of, but, it is a nice touch to it and, gives it a different element. Mm-hmm. And then another thing that we were both really adamant on was we both really enjoyed Provel cheese, and so we wanted to make sure we incorporated that, and so that's what goes on top of our chicken Parmesan, we actually, there's a funny story behind the corn brûlée, which started out as just a side dish. My wife and I had gone to a concert in Nashville that September, right before we opened the restaurant. I think we had already signed the lease. And we were at a nice steakhouse, and she got a side, and it was cream corn brulee. Mm-hmm. And it's different than how we serve it. This one was actually much creamier, but she just thought it was like the most unique thing she'd ever had. And she was like, oh my gosh, we have to copy this. We have to copy it. And I was like, okay. And so, we had dabbled a little bit. The funny part of it is, truly, honestly, we did not have the recipe down until midnight the night before we did our friends and family night. I actually have to give credit to our friends Christy and Casey Peck and Danes. They were actually the ones that were here helping us, and so we were in the kitchen and we couldn't get the consistency right. And then, even the type of sugar we were putting on top of it, we were, trying different things. And finally, it was honestly about 11:30 at night. And Casey said, what if we try sugar in the raw? And I was like, okay, whatever, if you think it'll work. And that was the missing touch. And we finally did it. And that was that. So, but we literally already had our menus printed with the corn brulee side on there, but we didn't have the recipe down yet. So that's where it kind of felt like an episode of Restaurant Impossible a little bit, but we were able to pull it together, and then we did our friends and family the next night, and we just went from there.
What are some of your other iconic dishes that people just can't get enough of? And I'll just say this too, a shout out to a couple of my friends and your friends, Billy Dove, the 417 Foodist, and Jeffrey Bates, 417 Good Eatin'. Ever since they've been going forward with their social media, they just cannot get enough of Piccolo. And I see their pictures, I see their posts, I hear them talk, and I think, oh my gosh, they're doing some stuff over there with pork belly, or they're doing some stuff over there, and the meatballs, and it's like you can't get enough of it. What are some of the things that are you just must-haves, can't live without? People will riot if you take them off the menu.
I would say probably our number one item is the chicken Parmesan, which I know is, number one in a lot of restaurants. We do serve ours with fettuccine Alfredo, and and I would say probably 90% of people get it with that. Some people get it with spaghetti with red sauce instead, and but that would definitely be up there.
Well, that's like 2 dinners.
Yeah.
For somebody like me, if you get a big chicken parm with the side of I might as well just have 2 full dinners in front of me.
Well, and I do feel like that's part of what a lot of people find appealing about our restaurant is that typically people don't finish their plate. Typically you go home with leftovers, and between that and some breadsticks, and then it's always shocking to me how much dessert we go through, but we do. So in addition to the chicken parmesan, cheese tortellini and the penne valentine are probably the other 2 just hot sellers that every time we run a sales mix, they're always the top 3. The cheese tortellini was something that I think me and my sister had actually suggested that to my parents, and that became their number 1 selling item for years. And so obviously when we came over here, we had to put it on the menu. And the penne valentine, again, that's kind of a tribute back to Joe Sinceri and Valentine's, because the story behind that is Joe had a weekly specials menu, and he would name things after people, and so he had a pasta di Arpino. And so then when my parents opened up, I said, well, you guys should name something after him, and they were like, okay. And so they came up with that recipe and called it penne valentine, and that's where it comes from.
I don't know how I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Didn't occur to me. Okay, I've got the menu in front of me. It's penne sautéed in homemade Alfredo sauce with fresh spinach, bacon, garlic, sun-dried tomatoes, and grilled chicken. I mean, come on. No wonder it's such a hot menu item.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely one of those just comfort food, any time of year really, but especially when it's cold out, it's just, hits a spot.
I'm looking down the menu, one little notch here, Di Arpino style shrimp scampi. What makes it Di Arpino style?
So the difference on that, and I don't remember which one of my parents came up with the idea to put it in there, but I think it was my dad, honestly, but they used Dijon mustard in there, and it just gives it just a little bit different, flavor aspect. So, but that's obviously been a huge popular item for us also.
You can't hardly screw something up putting Dijon mustard in it, but I would never have thought of putting it in scampi. I have not had that, but I'm going to definitely try it. Okay, just below that, the jalapeno corn brulee rigatoni. So here we go with the corn brulee. So you work this corn brulee. Let me just read it real quick. Rigatoni sautéed in spicy, Southwestern-inspired cream sauce with grilled chicken, sausage, meatballs, black olives, and pepperoncinis, topped with bruleed jalapeno corn, sriracha, and freshly grated Parmesan. So that corn has worked its way into history.
So the story behind that dish is, again, we started with it just as a side dish, and we had a guest that would come in here, and I really wish I could remember his last name, but I just remember his first name was Doug, and he would come in and he would order, something with Alfredo, and he would ask to have corn brulee on top of it. And so I was telling my wife about it, and she goes, well, we should come up with a pasta like that. And I said, okay. So again, she's the one that put the rest of those items together, and and once we put it all together, there's just so many different, flavor aspects of that pasta that, whether it's the little bit of spice in the sauce, the meats that are in it, because you have the 3 different types of meats, down to, the pepperoncinis and the olives and everything, and then the sriracha at the end. And, the bruleed corn gives it a little bit of sweetness. So, it's got a lot of different flavors in it, and it's obviously been a really popular item.
Well, I really appreciate Doug having the good sense to say, do you mind putting this bruleed corn on top of my pasta? Because what a great idea. So you have a full menu here, starting with these Piccolo plates. And you mentioned, I believe you have the meatballs, right? The Balboa meatballs, topped with the goat cheese, and you've got they're mozzarella stuffed. And they're just how you pictured them. I mean, except with Cassie's suggestion of the goat cheese.
Sure. Yeah, no, those have been, one of our top 2 selling appetizers since we opened up. And, honestly, they're one of those items that, I don't think we've ever had a complaint on them. Everyone seems to love them. They take a little bit longer. So that was kind of an adjustment when we first opened up, making sure that our servers knew they had to, get them sent back to the kitchen faster. But now it's to the point where I think, we have so many guests that know it's going to take, close to 15 minutes. So they just put their order in and everyone loves it.
Bring me that glass of wine. I'll be fine for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But that is something that I would imagine is a little bit labor intensive to put together also, So a lot of the handcrafted items here, they take a while.
Yeah. We definitely spend quite a bit of time preparing everything. All of our sauces are made from scratch, and we put a lot of time and effort into trying to make everything as unique as possible.
All right, let's move on down the line here to the Italian nachos, one of my absolute favorites. And it's not Italian nachos with your typical sort of corn chip on the bottom. It's something different entirely and so much more special. Tell me about it.
So we use wonton chips. That was an idea that my wife had. This is totally one of her menu creations. She had seen the idea and decided to, kind of make it our own. And the wonton chips were the big missing element to it. And, that down to the balsamic glaze that goes over the top of it, and the fresh basil. It's just, they've always been number one, and, everyone loves them, so.
So it's the wonton chips with the creamy Alfredo, grilled chicken, tomatoes, basil, pepperoncini, and the balsamic reduction drizzle. I'm sure there are people who come in and make a meal out of that one.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of times people do that. So, if anything, I think probably our only complaint with is people, so many times they want it on catering orders, and it's like, well, I don't know how well it's going to hold up in that situation, but. Dining in, everyone loves them.
Come into the restaurant for that one. Some things you just can't really, you can't really replicate it. It's not going to have the shelf life to get home. Come into the restaurant, enjoy it when you bring it out. Was Cassie vegan?
So, prior to getting cancer, she was, didn't have any, she always ate healthy, but nothing like that. But then after she got diagnosed, there was a stretch for probably about 5 years that she was vegan and, was strictly, 100%, vegan. And that was something that I think going through it with her, I think I got a different appreciation for people that have allergies or just have dietary restrictions because, during her treatment, we would travel quite a bit to go to different treatment centers. And I remember we were in San Diego one time and she had ordered something without cheese and it came out with cheese on it, and she was just so heartbroken. And we'd waited a little while for her dinner. At that point, she was just like, I don't even want to eat now. And so I could see the disappointment in her. And so once we were open and my staff met her, that was something that I was always able to, relay to them. Like I would tell them that story about how she felt that day. And I think it made it easier for them to relate to, okay, we do need to take this serious when someone says they have a restriction or something. So she, that was another thing that I think helped add to what we offer because, it hit a point where, when we would go out on date night, I would still obviously enjoy a steak or something like that. And she had to have, a vegan item. And so our options on restaurants that serve both were really limited. And so that was something that she really wanted to establish, the fact that we could be that restaurant where if the wife or girlfriend is vegan and the husband wants steak, that we can accommodate both of them.
And you do that really well, which is really why I brought that up, because I noticed that you have some of your sort of original items marked, but you also have a nice amount of vegan items here for people. There's some soups, there's a couple of different pasta dishes, which I think is great for people who really do need that or want that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we're happy to serve Jake's Vegan Sausage. It's a local company. Jake himself is the one that makes it out of his kitchen, and and honestly, it's a great product. Even someone like me who's not vegan at all, I think it tastes great. And my wife would make tacos with it all the time, and I would gladly eat them. So,
all right. So you have obviously salads, your appetizers, your specialty pastas, classic pastas, your pizza. How's your pizza business?
Pizzas, actually, we go through quite a bit. That was something that, we didn't want to be, just a pizzeria, but obviously we wanted to make sure that we had it on the menu. And so we used my dad's dough recipe, uses marinara on all the pizzas, and, some nights it's shocking how much pizza we go through. But the one that's definitely stood out is the veggie pizza. That one's probably our most unique. It's got our homemade basil pesto for the sauce. It's got mozzarella on it, feta cheese, onions, tomatoes, and then also fresh spinach. So, that one's definitely, and it's got the balsamic reduction when it comes out. And so that's been probably our most popular pizza since we opened up.
Haven't had it. Need to have it. Sounds delicious. You have what you call a sub-rice crust, which is gluten-free and vegan, that you can offer your customers. And all of these pizzas, it says, are a perfect 10-inch. Describe the crust.
So the crust is going to be hand-tossed. I don't want to say it's not super crispy. It's not super doughy. It's just kind of in the middle. Not overfilling. We think the 10-inch is a nice size for someone that, if you're hungry enough to eat it, you can finish it. But a lot of times people will take a slice or two home. So
I would imagine, or maybe even get one for an appetizer, take the rest home for the next night. And then, of course, you have your steaks, chops, salmon. I notice a blackened sous vide New York strip. You like this sous vide?
Yeah, so the sous vide is something that I have to credit my brother-in-law in St. Louis for. He was the one that first mentioned it to me. He said, have you ever heard of sous vide? And I was like, I don't know what it is. And, he's the one that introduced me to it. And, as soon as we got it, we tinker and try different things. But, without a doubt, the home run item's been our sous vide tri-tip that we do typically every Saturday for a dinner special. It's just so tender, just a super popular dish. But that's where the inspiration for the New York strip came from, with cost of everything going up so much. It just reached a point where, I didn't feel like serving a ribeye for what we would have to charge it for it. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like it was going to be as appealing to our guests, and so the New York strip gave us an alternative to that, and to make it unique, we sous vide it, and it's been so popular the first couple of weeks that we've been reopened. People really enjoy it, and even I'll have staff walk by as we're blackening it, and they'll be like, that smells really good. And I'm like, yeah, that's the seasoning. But
for people who may not really be familiar with sous vide, I want to say kind of like a boil and bag sort of thing, right? How do you describe that?
So I want to say, I think of it as like the set it and forget it type of cooking. Mm-hmm. The nice thing is, typically the longer you leave it in the water, the more tender it gets. Obviously, there's, you can overdo anything, but like for the tri-tip, for instance, we think it's optimal to sous vide it for 24 hours. You could eat it at probably 16 hours and it'd be good. And you can probably eat it up to about 30 hours and it'll still be good. But it's basically you just put it in the water, and the the amazing part of it is when you pull it out, whatever you have that water set to temperature-wise, that's the exact temperature that meat will be on the inside, no matter whether it goes for 4 hours or 24 hours.
That just fascinates me.
Yeah.
But I know everything is just so tender. And it sounds like you do specials. Do you do daily specials or just weekend or every now and again, or what do you do?
No, we typically have a daily special. We try to make it items that aren't on the menu. One of our popular daily specials, we do a flash fried Florentine. So it's got flash fried spinach on top of angel hair pasta with our blush sauce, grilled shrimp, and feta cheese. That one's really popular. But then, we've had items that were popular specials that, just became so popular that we had to eventually add them to the menu. And that's the case of the chicken marsala and the chicken piccata.
That one you just mentioned with the flash fried spinach, will you text me when you offer that as a special again? Holy cow.
Yeah, no, that one's really good.
God, that sounds amazing. And I know you do a happy hour, correct?
Yeah, every weekday from 4 to 6.
Perfection. Everybody needs a good happy hour.
Yep. Yeah.
And I mean the public. We need a good happy hour.
Yeah. No, it's even that's gotten a strong following. People that come in and they know at 5:55 they'll ask the server, hey, can I go ahead and get one more round before happy hour ends? So
yeah, good stuff. All right, we've covered a lot of territory here. I want to talk about your sweets. I want to talk about your desserts. I'm seeing cannoli, salted caramel butter tort. Hello.
Yeah.
And you say, despite the fact that you serve huge portions, people take home a lot of leftovers to eat later. They still go through a ton of desserts. What are your big sellers?
I'd say our number one is the salted caramel ooey gooey. That one goes all the way back to Valentine's, 25 years ago. Joe would buy just her. It's from Robin Sweets here in Nixa. She has a kitchen in her house that she makes just the most amazing cakes out of. But it was just the basic ooey gooey butter tort that was just. I remember looking at it the first time I ever saw it, and I thought it was a lemon cake because of the yellow color. And I was like, I don't want that. And then everyone was like, no, you got to try it. And once you try it the first time, you're just like, oh my gosh. And so when we were opening up, I had mentioned to Robin that I wanted to put it on there. And somehow it came up in conversation that she had a salted caramel one now. And I was like, let me try that. And I thought it was just to die for. So that, every time you eat it, it's just the same consistency, same sweetness, awesome cake. And then she also makes a strawberry cream cake that's really popular and a lemon cake that's really popular. So those are the 3 items that we get from her. And then the cannolis were something that my wife and I were really excited to do when we first opened up. A lot of cannoli mixes use ricotta cheese. But we wanted to use something a little bit different, a little creamier, so we use mascarpone in there instead. And so, to this day, we still make our own cannoli mix, and then stuff the shells, and it's obviously been a really popular item. So, then we've got to have tiramisu. People just love that. Yeah. So, and then we, for holidays and stuff, we'll bring in, special desserts. But the other thing that we've been really happy to provide lately is now we are able to get vegan and gluten-free desserts from Veggie Haven Catering, and his cakes are really good to the point where, when like my staff will try it, they'll always say, "Oh, I can't believe this is gluten-free. I can't believe this is vegan." Like you would never know it by tasting it. And so, those have been really popular also.
That's great. There really is something for everyone on the menu. And we're sitting in the restaurant now, and it's kind of the middle of the day, so you're gearing up, I'm sure, for a very busy night. And this is a beautiful restaurant, but it's a very comfortable restaurant. I'm seeing some of your art on the walls. There's a Raging Bull poster here, and then it looks like Mike Tyson behind you. A little bit of a theme. Describe your theme.
So, it's got a we definitely wanted to be comfortable, you know, and my wife, you know, if she were still here, she would probably admit that, you know, she could have spent $150,000 on just decor, but you know, that was something where she would bring up an idea and I'd have to reel her back in. But this wall, for instance, was her idea. I love this wall. I think it's the best thing in the restaurant. You know, and this was done locally by Redline Customs down here, and you know, I think it just came out great. So,
well, there are all sorts of Italian references all over the wall. Raging Bull, yo, the way you look tonight, it had to be you. Jason Bourne ate here. Take the gun, leave the cannoli. Yeah. I mean, it's just great stuff. It's very Italian themed and things people can relate to.
Well, yeah, and the very top, Settimo was my mom's dad, so my grandfather on her side of the family, and so he was born in Italy, and Settimo means seventh, and so he was the seventh son, so that's where his name came from. But when he came over to the States, he adopted the name Steve, and that's where I'm named after. So I'm actually named after both my grandfathers. Stephen was his adopted English name or American name, and Pat was my dad's, and I believe his real name was Pasquale. So wow. I always joke around that I could have been named Settimo Pasquale, but obviously I don't look like it, so I'm glad they didn't do that.
Well, it's a beautiful, comfortable spot with great food, and it's definitely a favorite here in Nixa, Missouri, and you won't miss the wall. When you walk in, you're kind of looking at the dining room and the bar, but over to the left you'll see the wall in bright red and white on a solid black wall, and I love the way you did that. Talk about this down here at the bottom, the numbers along the bottom of the wall.
So those are the coordinates for the city of Arpino, Italy, which is
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, which is where my family name comes from. So,
well, I'm not familiar with when I look at the numbers where it's going to be, so I thought it could be here, it could be Italy, it could be where you were born, it could. Okay, so I get it. Well, I've taken up a lot of your time today, and I really, really appreciate you talking to me, and I'm delighted that you are back open, as is everyone else in the Ozarks. So, you know, let me know what's going on with Piccolo and anything you have coming up new, and we'll do this again. Steve DiArpino, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time, Joy. Thank you.
Be sure to go to AroundTheOzarks.com to sign up for our daily newsletter, where you can get every episode of Savor the Ozarks, plus all our other podcasts, events, and contests straight to your inbox. And what are your favorite dishes in the 417? You have any restaurants you'd like me to visit? Email me at joy@AroundTheOzarks.com.